Hey everyone, Ashley here and welcome back to Just to Jet. Today I'm bringing you my 10 favorite vintage reproduction brands. I kind of mentioned this a little bit in my where to buy vintage clothing video that I can link above and below, because at the end I just wanted to mention that vintage reproduction is an option. That video was all about where to buy actual vintage pieces. So I thought it'd be a good next step from that video to talk about my favorite vintage reproduction brands. So I've picked 10, I just went through my closet. So these 10 are in no particular order, but there are 10 that I frequent a lot and I love their items. But before we get into it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. So as I said before, these 10 are in no particular order, it's just however they came, whichever came to my mind first. So it makes sense that we will start with a very big heavy hitter, and that is Unique Vintage. Unique Vintage has its own brand, but it also carries all your favorites, a lot of which I will be talking about here are also carried at Unique Vintage. So they have a brick and mortar that I've been to in Burbank a lot, then they have a huge online store. So for each brand, and I make that difference, not brand, not company, because some of these brands are only available in other stores. Some of these brands you can go to their website and they're only maybe for wholesale to retailers. So you might not be able to go to every single one of their websites and buy directly from them. You might have to go to Unique Vintage, ModCloth, some of the bigger retailers, and find the brands through them, if that makes sense. So I have a little blurb for each brand, I figured they can explain who they are better than I could. So Unique Vintage says, Unique Vintage celebrates the iconic flirty fashion of the past in modern, ready-to-wear contemporary designs for today. Unique Vintage, like I said, is their own brand, even though they carry other brands, and they have a huge swath. They have extremely intricate flatbread dresses from the 20s all the way to 70s stuff, like hippie era 70s designs. So they have everything that you could possibly want. And they also do a lot of collaborations with other brands, other kind of properties like Care Bears, Barbie, whatever, Disney, Disneyland. They do a lot of themed items. They do a lot of seasonal items. They do big on Halloween stuff. And I mean, you go there, there's something for you. Even if you're looking for a themed outfit by decade, by holiday, by season, they have a lot of beachy, summer beach themed stuff. They're always coming out with a lot of new items. So that's a big heavy hitter. Definitely check out for their own brand or others, some of the others I will talk about here. So the next one, ModCloth, I would definitely say is the most mainstream of all of the brands I'm going to talk about. ModCloth is their own brand, but they also carry a lot of other brands as well. ModCloth didn't really have a blurb that kind of succinctly talked about who they were, but they definitely have stuff that you could just buy anywhere in the mall, but they also have a lot of vintage inspired stuff. And they have great sales also as well. So you kind of a little bit have to search a little bit more in ModCloth, but they have a lot of great options that you should check out. Hell Bunny is the next brand I'm going to talk about. And I have a few items from them and they're really cool company. I feel like this vintage brand is kind of like Sandy at the end of Grease, that kind of aesthetic. And this is what they say about themselves. Hell Bunny has been at the forefront of creating edgy gothic, rock, and punk style that has evolved to encompass a more sophisticated, established, and well-loved brand covering eras from the 1920s to the 1950s. So they are much more succinct. They started out being much more alternative, and they've kind of they still have heavy alternative style to them. And then they've all kind of went to some of the more typical 20s through 50s style. So it's a good mix there. But if you kind of like a little bit of edge to your vintage style, Hell Bunny is a good option. And again, they only do the 20s to the 50s. So you're not going to find 60s and 70s stuff there. So that's another thing if you feel strongly about an era, what brand what brand covers that era that you really like. The next brand is Effie's Heart. And I kind of stumbled upon this brand. I'm starting to see it more around at vintage retailers. But it's basically, I think they do a lot of other items, but the thing that I really get drawn to is their dresses. So they do a lot of really fun patterns. So as a personal preference, I don't like vintage style dresses with very modern patterns, if that makes sense. I wouldn't want a vintage style dress with Baby Yoda on it. I love Baby Yoda. Love it. Recent convert from The Mandalorian. But that's not something I'd want. Or something just something that you wouldn't have, a print that you really wouldn't have been popular in mid-century. So they have some like that, like, but not all of them, like, so a lot of dresses are very like vintage inspired patterns, but their dresses are so comfortable, it's like wearing pajamas. And I don't mean that as like a slight. They are just like, they just feel so nice. So honestly, like, if you like want to really dress up and you want to be comfy, like they're like a perfect dress for that. So yeah, I have one dress by them and I really love it. It's a go-to because like I said, it's so comfy and beautiful. But I have to pick and choose my patterns there. But some people really like the modern patterns on vintage style dresses, so this is a great option for you if you like that style. So to go from a US heavy hitter to a UK heavy hitter, London-based Collectif is a huge brand over there, and we can get it here, everything. So it's a great brand, and this is how they kind of describe themselves. Collectif kind of separates themselves into two different lines in their brand. They have Collectif Vintage, which is inspired by the classic styles of the 40s and 50s, and Collectif Mainline, which maintains their roots in pinup and alternative, what do they call it, culture. So they kind of have like the classic styles, and then they have their version of like alternative clothing. So like Hell Bunny, they also have like a alternative twist, like the edge. So I would say, yeah, Collectif, I think there's one more too that also fits into that's coming up. Collectif and Hell Bunny and another one, they kind of have these like kind of two sides, these two different styles. So depending on what kind of vintage style you like, this could be an option. Like again, if you like that edge in your style. The next brand is Miss Candy Floss. And I found this through some vintage reproduction retailers that don't have their own brand, but I came across them in their store. And I don't think you can buy directly from them. I think you just have to just come across them or see like where they're carried. But Miss Candy Floss features 1940s, 50s fashion with a twist of 21st century's modern woman. That's what they say. So the cut and style and like fabrics that they use, that's like kind of hard to, I don't know if that really gets across my point, but it's very beautiful. Like the color combinations are very unique that they use while still being authentic. They have like really cool cut suits. I've almost bought a couple, but like they didn't have the right size or whatever at the times that I've tried them on. So I've kind of missed that opportunity. Hopefully again, I'll find one that works for me. But yeah, it's very heavy fabric in a good way, like quality wise. So I've just really liked, I go on their website and just look at the pictures. Because like I said, you can't buy directly from them, but I will just like look at the different styles they have. And I just like the cut, the color combinations, and like the actual quality. Because I do have, I think at least one dress from them. So I kind of know, I've worn it a lot, so I do know like the quality. As I just said, there was one more brand that kind of had that alternative edge to it, and that is Voodoo Vixen. And this is what they said about their brand. 20s to 60s styles clothing. Taking inspiration from these eras of glamour, Voodoo Vixen infuses classic retro, pinup, and rockabilly designs with subtle contemporary styling to bring you garments that not only reflect the elegance of Marilyn Monroe, but ooze the modern day glamour of a Viva Von tease. So this is actually Voodoo Vixen, this shirt that I'm wearing right now. It kind of is like an apple slice collar, just red buttons, red ribbing around the wrists and the waist. So this is definitely not edgy. So they definitely kind of, like the other two brands, they kind of really like have kind of two sides to them. But Voodoo Vixen definitely has like the rockabilly, like end of Grease Sandy feel to a lot of their stuff. So that's another great option if that's the vintage style that you like. I feel like it has a big rockabilly feel, but a lot of the styles, it's very subtle. So if you're not, like I'm not super into rockabilly look, but they do have ones that have a little subtle nod to it, which I'm fine with. The next brand is Tatyana Boutique, and let me tell you what they said. Tatyana Boutique specializes in pinup, vintage inspired dresses, separates, and accessories. I believe they had their brick and mortar in Caesar's Palace in Vegas, and then they moved off the strip. So I'd been to both stores. I know in the one that was off the strip, I think that one's closed as well, but I scored an amazing vintage inspired dress there on a previous Black Friday when we were over there for Thanksgiving break. So like they had a really good store there. I don't think it's around anymore, but they're still making clothes and selling them through retailers. But they do a lot of really cute stuff. It is more like on the pinup side, but they do a lot of plaid. And I am very much here for that. If you're a company that does a lot of plaid, I'm interested. So even though the dress that I got from them was all lavender, it wasn't plaid, but they do have a lot of great plaid items for the other plaid loving girls out there. So for another UK based vintage sweater brand, it's Band Retro, and I actually have quite a few items from them, but this is how they described their brand. In our UK based studio, we design not only vintage inspired garments, but also unique hand sketch prints, footwear and accessories inspired from the roaring 20s right through the 70s. So they do have a lot of pinup influence. They have a lot, like I said, like they are very involved in like they're heavily involved in like making their brands, and like their creative process is very important. And they also, again, do a lot of plaid. So I have a few plaid things from them that I really like. I keep going back to them because they bring the plaid game, and I can't have enough of it in my life. The last brand I want to talk about is Pinup Girl clothing. I used to go to their brick and mortar in Burbank, California, which sadly is no longer open, but it was one of the first vintage reproduction brands / stores that I ever went into, and it was so cool. Even like the setup in there, like the aesthetic of the store. They even had like a little salon area where you could go in and get your hair and like your makeup done in a vintage style, and then you could like do your whole outfit there too. You could buy everything. And I feel like they used to do like photo shoots, if I could be mistaken about that, but I definitely remember seeing like the little salon setup there. But yeah, sadly that's no longer open, but you can still get their items online. And of course they are a pinup inspired clothing that is all about body positivity. So like a lot of vintage reproduction, this isn't exclusive to Pinup Girl clothing, but they, you know, have a huge range of sizes. Pinup Girl clothing especially really wants everybody to be able to fit into their clothing and feel good in their clothing, and they are all about like women's body positivity. So that's definitely a message that's throughout all their clothes, throughout all their like branding and marketing, and also like Miss Candy Floss, their quality of fabrics are very high. So like their dresses, like I feel like they could last 100 years. Like they are very high quality fabric that they use, because I do have a few dresses from them. And I just feel like they will never like have to be thrown away from wear. So that's a great thing when you're investing in reproduction clothing. Like it's gonna last. If it's gonna last, it's a good brand to keep going back to. Those are all the vintage reproduction brands I'm going to talk about today. I'm sure there are many more that I even have, but those are the ones through my closet that kept coming up. That I go to again and again. But please let me know in the comments below if there's a vintage reproduction brand or company that you really love that I didn't list here, because I'm always on the lookout for more. So yeah, that's all for today. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.